Da 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 ba ba que rico da 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 rrrr, ba 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 ba. Welcome.
I wasn't expecting Mirror B to pop up this early in the conversation.
No, Mirror B is amazing, dude.
Oh yeah, I was gonna mention him during characters and story because he's the best thing to come out of here, hands down.
Good, I can't wait to talk about it then. Alright, so welcome everybody to Tradin Extras. This is not a proper numbered episode of the podcast. This is just a little thing that we wanted to do for fun because we've been on a tremendous hiatus since doing the Sonic Adventure 2 episode. And I am joined by my good friend Zorro. Say hello to the people, Zorro.
Hello to the people. I had a technical difficulty right after the intro.
Oh no.
Did you hear me swear?
No.
Okay, good.
I don't think so. The audio will tell us in playback.
Yeah, future cheese. If I did, just play that slow motion with the sensor.
Alright. I will, don't you worry, I will hardly do any edits on this thing, but we're still technically a family show, so swears require that. But yeah, so we were talking, and understandably, you were like, hey, when can I be on the show? And Danganronpa, we're still working on that. It's a very long game.
Yep, and I hear you have even more longer games in the works after that.
Right. Well, not even just long games, but like a lot of stuff like scheduled for like what we're gonna do next. And I've got like 5 different people like badgering me for collaborations. So it's kind of hectic. So that's why I wanted to do this little bonus episode. We're gonna talk about both Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness for the GameCube. 2 very cool games, and since it's just something. Sorry, what?
Otherwise, I was just gonna say, otherwise known as Pokemon, but if it was good in 3D. No shame on the newer games, but kind of shade on the newer games.
Sun and Moon was not that bad, anyway.
Thank you. I liked Sun and Moon. I thought Gen 6 was good. Gen 8, I will not.
Gen 6 was good enough. It was around Gen 8. I don't know. We don't. That is the one thing about. That is the one thing about this episode is that I don't want to just make this a platform for bashing modern Pokemon games because that's a lot of the discourse. I mostly just want to talk about how good Colosseum and XD are. But
sorry, I'll stop dissing on them then.
Yeah, but I mean also like we come here for the variety of opinions, so if you want to diss, then diss a little bit.
I've come with the controversy.
Oh no. Alright, well. Anything goes on Tradin Extras.
It's super effective.
So to talk about these for those that aren't familiar, Pokemon Colosseum and XD are in this really interesting case. They're not mainline Pokemon games, they are considered spin-offs, but they were developed by a team of developers that mostly are known for working on the Dragon Quest games. So still like an RPG that features like a big cast of, monster characters, but you can just tell with these games they have a very different vibe to them than mainline Pokemon.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, not only were these games made by people who had not really worked on Pokemon, but people who have not really played Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, these people had almost no experience with Pokemon, and then they're like, hey, want to make this game? And they're like, okay, and then they ended up making some of the best games on the GameCube.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how Game Freak basically handed them, like, here's the battle system. Here's all the Pokemon you have to work with.
And there's a blank check for whatever edgy ideas you have.
Yes, and then they just ran wild.
I miss when video game developers were more risky with their franchises.
I know, yeah. Um, well, the first thing, we're still kind of going to structure this like a normal Trade and Faves episode. So usually the first point of discussion about this is our history with the games, where we first found them, where what it was like when we first played them, any stories like that. So tell me, Zorro, what is your history with the Ore Pokemon games?
All right, so the origins is that when these games came out, I think it was like what 2002 when Pokemon Colosseum came out on the GameCube.
Um, I
It
think
was
it
either
was.
two.
I think it was 2004 in the U.S.
Okay, 2004. All right, so I would be around 6 at the time, and when I was young, like I'm the kind of like the only real video game I was obsessed with at that time was Pokemon because I grew up watching the anime because my brother roped me into it, and I was just Pokemon obsessed. I just to
Mhm.
give you an idea, like I bought Super Smash Bros. Melee on the GameCube just because Pikachu was on the box art, not even paying attention to anything else about it.
Yes.
So of course, when I see this, commercial for like this game about Pokemon in 3D, and in the game they like advertise like Kyogre and Groudon on it, even though they don't actually appear in the game. But that was enough for little old Zorro to just go to his parents and just go, "I need it, I need it." So then, after just pestering, like we didn't even have a GameCube, but after enough pestering from both me and my brother, my dad finally just like bit the bullet, grabbed the GameCube, bought a copy of Colosseum, shoved it in our face, and said, "Are you done?" And we're like, "Yes." However, after that, then we realized, oh wait, it can only have one save file, and there's one brother and one me. So then, we kept fighting over who got it. So then he went back to the store, got two memory cards, threw them at our face, and then said, "Okay, are you good now?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're good." And yeah, that's how I kind of annoyed my parents into getting me Coliseum. And by the time XZ came out, we had the GameCube. I found it, and we wanted that game too. So obviously, a lot less interesting story, but yeah.
Right.
All right,
That's
time to
that's kind of
rip.
funny because like my experience with Pokemon was like pretty similar to that, but like Gen 2. Because the game that I was crazy about was Pokemon Stadium 2. And then also like I learned about Smash Bros through Pokemon.
Oh, so very similar origin stories, it seems.
Yeah, kinda. There's
Yeah.
some similarities there.
To be fair, like the first Pokemon game was, well, technically Colosseum was my first Pokemon game, but the
Hmm.
first one I really got to play was Pokemon Stadium, and it was my cousins. We lived right next door to my cousins, so occasionally I would go over and I'd convince them to let me play Pokemon Stadium with like the rent battles.
Hmm.
And then, my brother got a Game Boy, got Pokemon Ruby, and I'm just like, I want to play. And he's like, no, get your own. So then, when Pokemon Colosseum, it was my first time to actually play a game. And I was a stupid 6 year old, so it didn't get too far in it. But now, as an
Right.
adult, I can actually get through it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think like my history with just like Pokemon in general. I've already talked about this a bit on our Super Smash Bros. Ultimate episode. But for those that haven't seen that, just kind of the quicker recap of my experience with the games. The first Pokemon game, actually, like to my knowledge, the first video game I ever played was Pokemon Stadium 2. And then from there, the first time I like properly had my own like Pokemon game all to myself to play was Pokemon Leaf Green. And then later we started getting like the other like I got Sapphire version, and then later like Colosseum, and then even like further beyond ahead, like we got XD and stuff.
Oh, yeah. For me, it was my brother got Ruby, then we both generally got Colosseum.
Hmm.
And then I kept annoying my brother about the Game Boy enough that they got me Sapphire version.
Yeah.
But then, then both of us are fighting over the single Game Boy to play our respective versions that we ended up getting a second Game Boy. And then since we had our own devices, it just kind of went from there, Violet, Leaf, Green, we each get one copy, etc., etc. DS comes out. My parents already know the drill. They just get two DSs out the front gate with Diamond and Pearl and all that jazz. So yeah,
Right.
this is my introduction of kind of like Pokemon was Colosseum, and I have to admit, considering how darker it is compared to the rest of the franchise, it might have had an influence on my taste as, a modern consumer of media, because now I'm just all for the darker, edgier stuff.
Oh yeah, they especially like Colosseum, like just the intro cutscene, like it really cranks up the edge.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Moving on to presentation, I just want to lay this down for anyone not familiar with the games. All right, so when you think Pokemon, what do you think? Like, oh, are you a boy or a girl? Are you ready to go on your journey? No, no. This game does not do any of that. You start out in a desert, and there's like this, villain hideout, and then there's an explosion. Then you just see this awesome guy with a flowing blue trench coat. He comes in, he steals this cool looking robot arm thing, and then, he goes on this motorcycle. No, not like a normal motorcycle, a hover motorcycle with an Umbreon and an Espeon, two fully evolved evolutions that are hard to get, especially if you play the Game Boy games. They were unavailable there. So, two Pokemon you don't even know, he just hops in, rides out into the sunset before launching a second bomb and destroying the base again.
It's insane.
Yeah, yeah. Like it gets
Colosseum has
crazy.
such a good opening.
And it just gets crazier from there. So so needless to say, yeah, the presentation's pretty good.
It's the main thing that I just want to illustrate about like both of these games, like especially I noticed this starting off with Colosseum. There is so much personality in the Ore Pokemon games.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you said, it's not that like, oh, you're moving to a new town. Maybe there's like a rival or a friend that you meet there that ends up like sticking with you on your journey, and then like, oh, there's like a quirky professor. It's like, no, you're like an ex like an ex villain who like stole like a valuable like weapon that they could have used against people, and now you're like on the run from them and trying to stop them, and it's just
oh yeah, yeah. Like
it's so cool.
this Ore region itself takes place in like Arizona, Texas area, or it's based off of like the American Wild West, and it shows in the story. Like the main character Wes is very reminiscent of like, classic Western folk tales from like, old Western movies, just like this lone desperado out trying to like, stop people from making shadow Pokemon, which, to those not familiar with the game, shadow Pokemon are basically Pokemon that have been abused to the point where their hearts have closed and they become shadow Pokemon, which are extremely more basically like very violent Pokemon made only for battles, like, actual animal fighting rings, like how they train pit bulls to like only fight other ones. It's like that, but with Pokemon, but not as brutal because it's still a children's game.
Right. But they're basically like feral at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Like, just to give you an idea, like, the shadow Pokemon, if you don't calm them down in the middle of battle, they can do certain things, like ranging from attacking your other Pokemon to just not doing anything to even attacking you as the player. Just these things are just kind of like, if the graphics were able to do it, they would probably have like rabies foaming mouths at the thing. It's like, oh. But yeah,
Another aspect of presentation that I want to talk about that kind of ties into this is like the art direction for the game, and especially the character design is one of the aspects I really like about this game, because they over the years Pokemon has gotten a bit more adventurous with their character designs, but this was the first case where we get some like really over the top characters. Like you mentioned with Wes, our main character of Colosseum, he's just got this like real like swag, this cool factor to him. But then in the same game, you get some of the most like wacky looking characters, like is like the mayor dude with the little like ball hair or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah, just the goofy nice mare, and then it ranges from like very cutesy designs like that to you know the big bag NASCAR, which is just like something straight out of Final Fantasy. Purple like six-pack abs, skin tight suit,
Hmm.
long white hair, and then pure red eyes. Like, okay, dragon influence. There you are.
Yep. It's
And
it's almost like it looks like a knockoff of like the like Riku in Kingdom Hearts 1.
oh, you know, it does kind of give me Ansem vibes now that you mention it.
It's kind of like Ansem, but then the outfit is like Riku's, so it's just it's very
I
Kingdom
mean, Ansem
Heartsy.
does possess Riku at one point, where Riku
Yeah, it
has
is
like a
true.
purple outfit. So it's like, kind of works either way.
It does. And then like I feel like even more so in XD, the villains are like wacky in that game.
Oh
They're
yeah,
so strange looking.
like I know a lot of people who play these games. One of the biggest jokes in the community is like, "Oh wow, look at the size of all their feet." But like, honestly, like, look at some of the sizes of some of like the bodybuilders. They are just like ridiculously buff. Like in the second game where you play as Michael, who is kind of a kid, but you know, not as cool as Wes. But like, these guys are like twice this kid's size. Like they got to
Hmm.
be at least like 6 feet tall in comparison to like everyone else in the game, and it's just ridiculous. And then talking more about the admins from XD. Oh gosh, I forget his name, but we got like the guy who basically like has movements and biology of a gorilla.
Yes.
I think his name was like was it Gorgon or something like that?
Ah, that sounds right. I had less time to look up details for XD than I did for
Yeah.
Colosseum, so my memory's a little less fresh on that. But
Well, even
like,
without that, we also have like Lord Verena, who's basically just Hatsune Miku, but with pink hair and an evil scientist.
yes.
And Naddle, which I don't even know how you describe his design. Just gray, long hair, like it looks like another kind of like Final Fantasy Dragon Quest character just dropped
Hmm.
into Pokemon.
Which one was the one with the little like mecha Groudon?
Oh, Choben.
Chobin, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about the Mecha Groudon, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's one thing that never made sense for me as a kid. Just like, oh, look at this Mecha Groudon. It will improve my Pokemon battling, and it's like, but it's not doing anything. Like you're not fighting with the mech. Why do you need a mech to Pokemon battle?
He's still throwing out the Pokeballs and making them fight.
Yeah, yeah, like the mech's not doing anything. Like if it made like he uses like a sunny day team. So if like
Hmm.
the robot artificially made like sunny weather all the time, kind of like Groudon's drought ability,
Yeah.
then it would make sense why he would want to battle with it, but it serves no benefit for his Pokemon. It just makes him look more intimidating, which props to that, but like
Right.
what were you expecting to happen?
I remember the thing with me in XD is that I didn't play it myself because there's like the one save file thing again. So my younger brother played through it and I watched. But when we first saw it, because you can see like the Mecha Groudon off in the distance, and we're like, "Is that Groudon? That's insane!" We're like, "There's gonna be Groudon in this game. That's so cool!" And then we found it's just like the mech suit, and you don't even fight it. It's just the guy in it while you have a Pokemon battle. We're like, "Oh man."
Yeah, it's kind of like the spoilers for Sun and Moon, but kind of like Lusamine, where it's like in the
Oh
original
yeah,
Sun and Moon, where she fuses with one of the oh gosh, what's it called?
the Ultra
Ninky
Beasts.
Legos.
Yeah.
and like becomes like this super freaky thing, and it's like, oh gosh, that looks sick. And then it's like, oh, I'm just gonna throw out Pokemon, and at least in that one, like she buffs them up with like the totem Pokemon auras. But like,
Right.
what was the point of having this cool transformation sequence if you're not gonna fight me? Throw hands with me. I want to
Yeah.
throw hands with you.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I guess, one thing I will note about the presentation is that a lot of the models look absolutely great. Although, uh, a lot of the models also kind of look dated because a lot of them were reused from Pokemon Stadium 2.
Yeah.
Like, you take a look at, like, a model of, like, a Skull with, like, the glowing eye and the movement, and then you look at Machop, who, like, supposed to be rounded, but looks like a flippin' Porygon.
Yeah, very blocky.
And it's just like, you can tell where models were reused. And I will give this: it's like, you think it was bad reusing the same model since Gen 6? Pff, try using N64 models on the GameCube.
Mm-hmm. Or even the, what was it, Pokemon Battle Revolution all the way on the Wii. Like,
I mean,
they,
they used all new models. Like, say what you will about that game, but the presentation of Battle Revolution was phenomenal.
yeah, it was good. I mean, the only thing I was gonna say, they used like new models and they like, kind of polished everything. Well, sometimes the poor Kangaskhan was like pretty much still the N64 model. um,
Yeah, yeah. Like,
but
they did.
they reused a lot of animations. Um,
Yeah, well,
in Battle
the
Revolution.
animations in Colosseum were really good, and that's
Exactly.
one more thing I will say about the presentation. Like, up until this point, like in Pokemon, aside from like Stadium, which N64 they were a little stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon just kind of stood there, and especially for the sprites, they weren't even moving at this time. Like the only bit was like in Emerald where they do like a little pop-in animation. But
Yeah.
these ones, you have a Pokemon moving in 3 dimensions, and they all look natural. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you compare them to some of the modern games, I know we don't want to ditch, attack too much, but like lot of these animations look a lot more organic than like the kind of stiff standard poses you're used to. So
Mm-hmm.
it just
It's
makes
so much
the
better.
game feel, yeah, it makes it feel so alive.
Mm-hmm. It's like that's the main takeaway that I have for like the visual style of the game. The graphics are decent for the time that they were made. Obviously, it's not going to be anything impressive now because it's an old GameCube game. Um, like the quality of the graphics are just decent, but the animation is extremely good in this game.
Oh yeah, like even for some of the non-Pokemon related things, like in XD in particular, like along with Robo Groudon, which is very well animated, the Robo
Mm-hmm.
Kyogre sequence, or just like the transforming submarine that you have to ride to get to the final level,
Yeah.
very phenomenal. And even then, just like the way like the Colosseum doors go up, the elevators that just kind of come up with the sound effects, like there is a lot of good animation. And okay, one other thing about the presentation is that, sometimes, like, I made fun of, like, the proportions before, but it can actually help sell the fear. Like, in Pokemon Colosseum, when you go to Mount Battle for the first time and you face one of the admins, Dakim, just
Yes.
seeing this giant hulking guy that's, like, twice the size of Wes, so this guy's got to be, like, 10 feet tall, just punch a dude in the stomach and knock him out, that strikes the fear of God in you. Like, and as a children, me and my brother were freaking out. Well, more me, but I was just like, he just punched him. What's wrong with this guy?
And it's so like not something that happens in Pokemon as well. Like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one thing. I guess we're kind of going into story things, but like one thing I love about these games is that they just kind of subvert a lot of expectations. Like in Pokemon games, you solve all your problems by throwing animals at each other, which makes sense. That's what the game's about. But this one, they actually kind of ask questions like, well, why would I do this? If you don't have any Pokemon left, I'm just going to rob you of Pokemon. Like, if
mm-hmm.
I'm buff, why would I send out my Pokemon? I'm just going to knock you upside the head. And in XD, like, this all culminates to, you run into Team Snag'em at one point in the game, and you beat them, and they run away. and then they come by. There's this guy named Walk-In, and instead of saying, "Okay, I know I'm not as strong as you, so I'm just not gonna battle you," and then he puts you to sleep with sleep powder from his gloom, and then steals your snag machine, the machine you need to snag shadow Pokemon, and it's like, wait, that was an option? Why don't we see this more in the mainline games? Like, because
Yep.
realistically, if you had Pokemon that could like put people to sleep, it would make crime so much easier.
It's true.
Like, imagine a scenario where, like, a villain team uses a bunch of electric type Pokemon to cause a power outage in order to break into a museum or something. Like,
Hmm.
it, it's just a one moment, and it doesn't really go further than that. But like, it's so much potential for stuff for like plot points and cool set pieces that I really wish I want to see more of this stuff.
Hmm. For sure. I think the last thing I do want to talk about with presentation before we move on is the sound aspect of the game, both the music and the sound design in general. We'll save talking about like our favorite music tracks for like the end when we get to the favorite stuff, but let me tell you, the soundtracks to these games, they are super good.
Yeah, if you have not listened to the soundtrack, do us a favor after this video, listen to it. You will not regret it. Like, both XD and Colosseum have a lot of bangers in here. Like,
Hmm.
the admin theme in particular is great in both games. Like, both Mirror B songs, like, you kind of heard Cheese doing his little rendition of it in the beginning.
Right.
But like, it ranges for like a lot of variety in there too. We got Mirror B's like very oh gosh, how would you even describe it? Just like very Latino beat, just like Rastafarian, like chaotic dance party. And then his other theme is like a very pop thing reminiscent of Michael Jackson. Then you
Hmm.
also got calmer stuff like the Aegis Forest one, where you gotta go to the Purification Stone and that peaceful tranquility. Like, sometimes I would just walk over there and I just sit there and watch it just because the music was so peaceful.
Hmm.
And then you also got like stuff like smooth jazz for like Pyrite Town. Like, it is
Oh
surprising.
yeah.
Like, despite the game like being relatively smaller compared to most other Pokemon games, there is a surprising a lot of variety when it comes to like the environments and the sound design.
Hmm. And this one is not to dunk on mainline Pokemon because I think what mainline Pokemon does with its soundtracks is really great. But you notice they kind of go for the same things with like every generation. It's like, okay, we need like this like wild battle theme that's in this style, and then this trainer battle theme that kind of follows this trend, and then like like a rival theme or whatever. They do the same things every time. Whereas this one, like, it's just all over the place with like genres and styles and just like really surprising stuff. I even think back to like the first battle theme in Colosseum, just like with like the orchestra and the electric guitar. Like I'd never heard anything like that in a Pokemon game. That just completely blew my mind.
Oh yeah, that first fight in Colosseum really helped set the tone, just because it's like you got that classic Western standoff between you and that other guy. I think his name was like it started with an R. I don't remember, but yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as it just starts, it's like like it
Hmm.
just screams, "Hey, you're about to go on a ride, kid."
Yeah, it's so let me think. So the composer of the soundtracks is Tsukasa Tawada. Um Probably most well known for his Pokemon stuff, but he's also done, as is in line with the rest of the studio, he's done lots of like Dragon Quest stuff, and some more obscure work, but I am in love with this guy's like work in the Pokemon series. Cause even like beyond these games, he's done like spin-off stuff like Pokemon Troze and I think Pokemon Shuffle as well. I'm not sure about that,
Oh, all
but
right.
yeah.
I'm not really familiar specifically with like the composer himself, although
Hmm.
I am in love with the soundtrack. But So, does he still work with like Pokemon games or nah?
I'm not sure if he's done anything more recent. I just know, well, and also like there's Pokemon's doing a lot of different stuff with their spin-offs now because it's not like we have like the home console handheld console split anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
As well as
and
like Pokemon is starting to like foray into like mobile games and stuff. So
yeah,
they probably don't have the same like teams working on stuff as they used to.
yeah, they got a lot of the main teams just kind of circulating games for the Switch for make yearly releases.
Mm-hmm.
Which a shame that but I get it. Company
Right.
gotta make money.
Yeah.
Love to see them make a new Colosseum game, but anyway, getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, same. I want to talk a little bit about the gameplay because there are some very interesting, unique to these games mechanics that are introduced. We already talked about it a little bit, but the fact that there's the shadow Pokemon, as well as
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
as well as like catching other trainers' Pokemon instead of wild Pokemon.
yeah. Well, one more fundamental difference between like this and the mainline game is that in s- in the mainline games, you are mostly familiar with like single battles, one on
Mm-hmm.
one. One of the big differences with Colosseum and XD is that it is all double battles.
Yes.
Like you will have to manage two Pokemon at the same time, which in itself gives you a lot more to worry about because not only do you have to learn your own team, but you also have to keep in mind two enemies at the same time, and it involves a lot more strategy, which I, as someone who loves a good challenge in games,
Mm-hmm.
appreciate this because it gives you a lot more things to think about. Like, there's a reason why in competitive Pokemon they always do double battles versus a single battle format because double battles are a lot more lenient to like high level competitive play and like using unique strategies. Like
Mm-hmm.
one that is implemented well in like both games by the Ape Man and Dakim is the
Yes.
Earthquake Protect strategy,
Mm-hmm.
where basically you have one Pokemon use Earthquake, which is a 120 base power ground type move that hits everyone, including your ally. But if you have your ally use Protect, they don't take damage. It is a simple but very deadly combo, especially this early on in the generation before Power Creep just kind of made a bunch of other abilities and strategies like the top dogs. But this is just very effective and, if you're not prepared for it, it will just wreck you. Me and my brother were stuck on Dakim for like months because of the
Mm-hmm.
earthquake protect strategy, and we were too stupid to figure out how do we even go up against this. And, uh, we were stupid. But, it's just one of those things that it's like, uh, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, actually.
Right. No, I definitely remember having to reset fighting Dakim a bunch as well. um, it's and it's not just the fact that it's double battles because like that in and of itself is crazy. It doesn't matter how strong your Pokemon are individually. You also have to think about your team synergy between the two. But also the AI is like a little bit smarter than your average Pokemon game. You will find some opponents that like really try and employ strategies, like the Protect Earthquake combo, as well as like some things were not yet nerfed, like they were in later gens. Like Surf doesn't hit your partner as well as the two opponents. It only hits the two opponents. So that was just a free way to deal damage on both Pokemon. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. And even with like the bosses, like each one just kind of had like a central strategy. Like
mm-hmm.
Mirror B, Mirror B and Ein in the first game, they used Rain Dance. For Mirror B, the rain would help his Ludicolo's just with boosted water stab attacks, and with their ability either making them faster or healing a little bit with Rain Dish.
Mm-hmm.
With Ein, he used Protect. I mean, no, not Protect. Rain Dance with Thunder, and Thunder
Yes.
is a strong electric type move with 100% accuracy in the rain. So yeah, just setting that up so that he boost up his electric type Pokemon, and even like some of the weaker admins like Venus had a strategy of like using attract and a Pokemon with abilities like cute charm in order to use infatuation, and then with moves like confuse ray, like basically was just trying to hax you so that you couldn't you do anything against her while her
Hmm.
Pokemon just beat you to death.
It's insane how brutal the AI gets in these games.
Yeah, I will say this as a knock. Like, I prefer XD, Gale of Darkness, personally, but
Hmm.
I feel like some of that strategy is a little lost in that second game. Like, we still have, like, the Earth and Protect boss battle with the ape guy Gorgon, I think. But
Yeah.
just for comparison, Dakian is the second main boss you face in Colosseum. This guy is, like, the boss you face before going to the last level.
Right, closer to
So it's like,
endgame.
yeah, yeah. So it's like it XD is a bit easier due to a number of factors, but it's like, you don't have to really think as hard as that one. Like it's still pretty difficult near the end game, but one of those things that I wanted to see a bit more in XD since it was so well handled in Coliseum.
Hmm. One of the things I just been learning about this, so to like kind of refresh myself on these games, I was watching speed runs of the games, and so you get players that like really know the mechanics inside and out of the game. With the shadow Pokemon in particular, I was not aware of how complex that system was, because there's things like you know how Pokemon have like natures that affect their stats.
Yeah, yeah, and depending on the nature, they'll have a different way of like, purifying them that's more effective than the others. And we should really talk more about the shadow Pokemon. It's like the main draw of the game.
Right. Well, it was crazy to me because like I always kind of thought that like everything was sort of the same amongst all shadow Pokemon. Like, oh yeah, you just do this stuff that like fills up the gauge or whatever. But it's like their nature affects like their temperament, like how often they go into hyper mode, or like it affects like how well certain things affect their ability to like be purified. Like they'll be purified like slower, quicker based on their nature and everything, based on like the things that you do. And so it's just crazy that I mean Pokemon is already kind of known for this with like the EVs and the IVs and all the hidden values, but it's just like once again Pokemon has this extremely complex system for people that really want to get into the nitty-gritty, but then also it's like purely in the background. A little kid could play through this game and like purify their Pokemon and have no problems doing that without even knowing any of this.
Yeah, and I will just say this for those who haven't watched the game, like or played the game. What we mean by shadow Pokemon is the main gimmick of this game is that you don't catch Pokemon in the wild, since Ori doesn't have a lot of wild Pokemon because it's a desert.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to get new Pokemon, your main goal is to actually steal these weaponized shadow Pokemon from the villains using a thing called the Snag Machine, which basically bypasses like the poke protection of like trainers owning a Pokemon and allows you to catch trainers' Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you have the snag machine, the game won't let you use it on any of their Pokemon, just the ones that are Shadow. And then you catch it, and the idea is that you have to purify them. And
Mm-hmm.
you may be asking like, why would I purify Shadow Pokemon, especially in XD, where every Shadow type attack is super effective against any non-Shadow Pokemon?
Mm-hmm.
And, it actually is very smart because it encourages you to do it because shadow Pokemon can't level up. So, yeah, you might be able to like catch a very powerful shadow Pokemon, but if it's at level 30 in the late game, it's not really going to be useful for you unless you purify it, and then when you purify it, all the XP it would have earned, it gains all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, unless you want to go through and face like level 68 Metagross with that one level 30 Monkey you got at the beginning of the game, you're going to have to purify it. But then you'll also get unique egg moves that Pokemon can't usually learn by purifying them. So, yeah, you're taking away the super powerful Pokemon, but purification is set up to be like this more worthwhile reward because now you can make your Pokemon even stronger and with powers that you can't usually get in the mainline games. So
Hmm.
it's a very well thought out system.
It's extremely cool. I also like the sense of progression as you purify them. You slowly like unlock more of the Pokemon's other like attacks besides their shadow move.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because at the first you only get restricted to like the shadow moves, the ones that they were built and basically made for. But the more they open up, the more they kind of retain their original personalities and get their original moves back, which honestly is a great way of like telling a story through gameplay, like a perfect melding of both of them,
Hmm.
which I think transitions well into characters and stories, unless you have any other notes on gameplay.
No, I think that's about it for gameplay. There is. Do we want to start with start with Colosseum and then go to XD, or just kind of intermingle everything? Um,
Yeah, you can start with Colosseum, and then we can move on to XD, and I'll give my summary of it.
okay. I think that would help too because, like I said, my memory is still a bit fresher. With Pokemon Colosseum, I remember a bit more of the details there. We already kind of talked about him a bit, but Wes, our main character, just like has that cool factor, man. Like, I really like the sleek design of the snag machine on his arm, and then the other kind of major character because we start with him just kind of being this lone drifter out on a mission to stop Team Snag'em, and then we get why don't I remember her name?
Rui?
Yeah, Rui. There's a girl that is like being captured by Team Snag'em, and you save her, and you find out she has the ability to recognize when a Pokemon is a Shadow Pokemon, because she can
Yeah, she's
see.
got special eyes.
Yeah, she's got special eyes. She can see the shadowy auras on the Pokemon, whereas like the common person can't. So she ends up being really helpful to you for
Yeah,
that reason.
she also serves as the player's mouth speak because at this point, Pokemon protagonists can't speak, so she's the one
Right.
reacting to everything while Wes is just looking cool, letting the hair blow up against his, blow in the wind and
Yeah.
everything.
You put the two of them together and they complete an RPG protagonist.
Okay, uh, personal story from me and my brother.
Hmm.
When we first played Pokemon Colosseum, there was just jumping ahead a bit.
Yeah.
Ryu, the one of the reasons why she has this power, or at least a theorized reason, is that she's actually like the daughter of like one of the old guardians of Agate Town, which is the town where there's this object called the Purification Stone, which is like for the first game at least, the only way to purify Shadow Pokemon is to bring them to this Purification Stone and have Celebi bring their hearts back in time to before they were abused.
Hmm.
And the old guy, I forget his name. I think it was like, was it Alder? No, no, like I don't know. But the old guy, the guardian and Rui's father, was alone, had only one Pokemon, and was a Pikachu. And
Oh, that
because
was
of
Egon.
yeah, Egan,
Hmm.
and just me and my brother being stupid kids with theorizing because of how old he was and his wife, and the fact that Ryu, Ryu,
Rui.
Ruri, yes, thank you.
Hmm.
I can't think. Looked like basically Misty if she chopped at a hot topic.
Yeah.
We had to theorize that this was a Pokemon game set in the future and that this was Ash's and Misty's daughter somehow. And we were just like, yo, this is cool. But now we're older and like, that was stupid.
I don't know. I've still heard the fan theories that Egon is supposed to be Ash, like grown up.
Yeah, yeah. And like, because he has that one Pikachu and it's
Hmm.
kind of a shame because like then he loses to like a single Shadow Hitmontop.
Right. Well, that was if I remember hearing about this. If you want some more credence to the Egan Ash theory, um, So like his main Pokemon is Pikachu, right? They joke about how every generation of the show, Pikachu gets nerfed back to square one again.
Oh my gosh.
So it's still happening.
Me and my brother finally validated.
I mean, it's a very fun fan theory, and like you're definitely right. Rui does look a lot like Misty.
If she shopped at a Hot Topic.
Yeah, yes, the fashion not so much, but the appearance.
Hey, I'm not knocking it. She is rocking that crop top jacket.
Yeah, it's true. Also, while we're talking about silly stuff with Egan's Pikachu, did you know that there is a 0.01% chance that his Pikachu can win that like scripted battle where he's supposed to lose to the Hitmontop?
Oh yeah, yeah. Doesn't it still cut to the cutscene where he loses though?
Yes,
That's so pathetic.
but it's it's just so funny because what happens is Pikachu has the ability Static, which has like a small percentage of paralyzing the opponent when they use an attack that makes physical contact, which Hitmontop does. So there's like a slight chance of paralysis like happening while Hitmontop is fighting Pikachu. And then like if it's paralyzed and its move stalls, then there's a chance that Pikachu will use like one of its electric moves and like deal major damage to the Hitmontop and win the fight.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like the odds of it happening are so astronomically like near impossible, but like people have seen it before and it's super funny.
Imagine like being a kid and watching that play out and then getting confused on why Egan still lost.
Exactly.
But yeah, getting a bit back on track.
Right.
The story itself, just by its very concept, is very dark and something you would never see Pokemon attempt, especially in this day and age, at least in a mainline game. Like,
Hmm.
Pokemon being abused to the point of being biological weapons, being distributed in basically these underground fighting rings of Colosseums, hence the
Hmm.
name. Like, and just some of the locations, like Pyrite Town is basically a scrapyard, like a lot of poverty, and the Under itself is just a basically an underground black market, like neon signs, everything's grungy, edgy. Like, it is surprising that, you'd look at this like an isolated screenshot and it's like, is this a Pokemon game?
Yeah. It's the difference in tone compared to mainline Pokemon game, as well as just the stakes. You really feel the weight of like the stakes in like trying to stop these bad guys from, hurting and corrupting Pokemon and everything.
Oh yeah, and like I said before, if like the melding of Pokemon gameplay and story, like the Shadow Pokemon themselves being reckless and unstable just shows the damage. But the bad guys themselves also have many showcases of like doing despicable things. Like
Yes.
Mirror is this goofy Michael Jackson, just kind of like character. But even then, like he does have his brutal moments. Like when his two there were like two female grunts that work for him. And when they get defeated, he basically just kind of writes them off, saying like, "Ah, that's weak." And he kidnaps one of the mayor's precious Pokemon at Plusle and threatened to basically turn into a shadow Pokemon, and it sends him into a depressive episode. Like he is too depressed to even try to fight for his town.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, like you also get like Venus, who once they define like a spy in the Under, they literally throw him in a cage and like show an abuse. And this spy is a child. Like they show actual child abuse on screen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in order to prevent you guys from sneaking into the like subway, they literally blow it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like with explosives, like in the entire underground, boom. Like these villains definitely don't play around.
Yeah. Um, Another thing that I feel like also adds to the stakes, there's in addition to like the game just being more difficult in general, there's a really good difficulty curve with like the farther in you get in the game, the more you find like the Pokemon that would probably be more like meta, like the higher tiered Pokemon. And especially the fact that like the admins for the villain team all use legendaries that are shadow Pokemon, I think is one of the coolest things because like the mainline Pokemon games don't usually incorporate the legendaries enough into like the main campaign. Usually they're just like hidden secrets for players that find them. Whereas these are like the bad guys are using legendaries, and that is so cool.
Oh yeah, like Dakim has an Entei, Venus has a Suicune, Ein has a Raikou, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of weird that like the main admins have like these shadow Pokemon, but like the boss doesn't use one. Their final boss is a Shadow Tyranitar.
It's true, but Tyranitar is also brutal in its own right.
Oh yeah, yeah, not denying it. I'm just like, oh, I was hyping up for a Shadow Ho-Oh or something, but nah.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, like definitely shows just like how serious they are. Not only that they captured them, but were able to turn these legendary Pokemon into even deadlier things. Like that's one thing they kind of dropped in XD story wise,
Yeah.
because there are like the shadow legendary birds of Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, but the final boss uses all three at once, which,
Hmm.
while intimidating, kind of lessens the impact of like having them if they're all just going to be kept by the for a final battle.
Right. There's like a huge leap in difference between the admins and the main bad guy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that is I guess we can kind of bridge unless we want to get into like spoiler talk with Colosseum, but like that's the one thing I notice is I feel like Colosseum, like with its like really fast paced opening and everything, and like it throws you right into it, like Colosseum gets started right away, whereas XD has a bit of a slower build.
yeah,
But then like the climax of XD gets like insane, like how insane it gets. Whereas Colosseum keeps like a steady pace the whole time.
yeah. Because Colosseum, I can say that about the gameplay too, just because like in Colosseum you start with like two starters, an Umbreon and an Espeon, and they're both like in like high 20s, 28 and 29.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, you're in your 60s. So that's about 40 levels of gameplay. But in XD, you start with only a level 5 Eevee, which, well, it's great because you can customize your starter now and offers variety. Like, you go up until 50. So it's definitely a more longer, slower paced adventure, but the
Yeah.
insane is crazy. So we'll jump into that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, XD takes place, I think, either 2 or 3 years after the events of Colosseum, maybe 5.
Um, 2 or 3 sounds right. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember, but a little bit later. There's a time skip.
but yeah. The cool guy Wes is no more, and now you're playing as the stupid 10-year-old boy, just like every other Pokemon game called Michael. Uh,
I
and
don't
the
know
only
if I'd say
reason,
he's stupid. He just doesn't have the
I
cool
mean,
factor like West does. But
you go this lone Jotaro-esque, you know, awesome guy, cowboy Pokemon desperado, to this dinky little ginger kid with a snag machine that doesn't even look as cool.
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
And before you guys, call me out for hating gingers, I also have red hair, so I can make this complaint.
He's got the ginger pass.
I have a ginger pass. Your argument is invalid. This kid is stupid. Yeah, like
All
I have
right.
to admit, like in the beginning, the story is. I don't want to say it's a bad story, but it's a lot more traditional. And if there's one thing I like over Colosseum over XD is that XD has a lot of quality of life gameplay things. Like there's a lot more variety of shadow Pokemon to build your team with. It's easier to recatch Pokemon that you've missed.
Mm-hmm.
And, they do allow you to catch wild Pokemon, which does kind of help with like the, repetition of everything. Although that really comes at a cost of like the tone, because now we're living in an era of peace. because Wes kind of saved the day. So now
Yeah.
we get to look over and, everything's fine. Like, even when the villains come back, it's kind of framed in a, oh, well, we still have the upper hand. Not only do we have the snag machine, but we also have this purification chamber. It's
Mm-hmm.
basically just, a, another brilliant move to help with like the grinding of purifying every shadow Pokemon in the game, but also kind of takes away the effort because you can just put Pokemon in the chamber, they purify themselves. It
Yeah.
lessens the impact of like, the work and the abuse done to them, and it makes it seem like oh, okay, just shove it in there for a couple of minutes, it'll be fine.
Just put them in the happy microwave for a second, and that'll fix them.
Yeah, yeah, just let them vibe in the good vibes chamber.
Yeah, the good vibes chamber.
And even the villains, while they still have crazy designs, a lot of them are just non-threatening. Like, again, in the
Right.
first game, our professor was Professor Ein. He has like sunglasses, gray jacket. He just has this look that says, "I'm better than you," and he has a Raikou. The scientist in this game is pink-haired Hatsune Miku, and her
Mm-hmm.
shadow Pokemon is a Delcatty. Which one do you think is going to strike more fear into the hearts of your enemies?
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Although, that's not to say that the plot is completely void of the darker tones.
Yeah.
Like, overall, it's lighter, but, like, there are moments where it gets, I will argue, darker than the original.
Yes.
And I will point to Fennec City for this example. Spoiler alert for, like, a
Oh, yeah,
very old game.
yeah.
So in the original game, Fennec City is like this oasis. It's a peaceful place. When Wes gets there, you that's where you rescue Ruri, and after kind of like speaking to the mayor and learning how to catch shadow Pokemon, you really don't do a lot more in the city. Well, in the later
Mm-hmm.
game, you go there in order to try to like find the new mayor who has been replaced for spoiler reasons at Colosseum that I will not divulge. But
Right.
anyway, when you get there, everyone's acting off and strange. They're trying to get you away to go to this Railgun Tower to just play casino mini games and gamble. But then you find out that Cypher somehow captured every single living person in there, locked them in the pre-gym, and basically replaced every person in the city with a peon double. Like, you talk to any NPC after reveal, and they'll rip off their clothes, reveal themselves as an enemy, and they will fight you on the street.
Right.
Like, it's actually crazy to think that they were able to pull off this level of conspiracy without anyone figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Just makes you wonder, if you hadn't stepped in, how many more people would they just silently replace in the background?
It's so true. It's so creepy.
Yeah. And, I'll mention this again because it was cool. This is the game where they sleep powder you in order to steal your snag machine, which, using Pokemon for actual acts of violence is something that, very rarely see in the mainline games, not even Colosseum. So
Mm-hmm.
it does have its moments, but overall, it's a lot more of a lighthearted jog through.
Mm-hmm. I will say, one of the differences in XD that I do like, there's kind of pros and cons to the way the two different games do it. But the thing that I do like about Michael is that he's got his little, like, scope that can show him where shadow Pokemon are.
Yeah,
As cool as it is to have a partner character like you do in Colosseum, I like that they made that distinction in XD that, like, oh no, he can just spot a shadow Pokemon on his own. So it's kind of more efficient.
yeah, and at first it was a little lame because now instead of like having this deep bond of like a spiritual mystical skill, it's like, oh, well, now I can do that with technology too. So it's like, oh, cool.
Science.
Let me just check the scouter to see how check his shadow level,
Yeah. What?
and then
9,000?
there's no way that can be right. But at the same time, it's a blessing in disguise because like the one partner you do get is Michael's little sister Jovi,
Oh,
and she is so annoying. It's like, you know what? I'll take the scouter over having to babysit her all game.
yeah. You're
Like,
like, she's not gonna be like with me for the rest of the game, right? No. Okay. Okay.
yeah, like go to Gashion Port, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna go hang with my friend now. It's like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I do not want to deal with that condescending attitude this entire game.
Yeah. XD is kind of more comfortable just like turning the player loose and being like, okay, do this yourself. As
Yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
like needing Rui to like comment on all the situations.
Yeah, and it kind of really speaks more because, like, there's actually a lot more creative scenarios. And, one thing I will say is, like, even though you do revisit a lot of places and they're less grittier, like, the grittiest place in Colosseum was the Under, like this
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Black Market, and it's completely torn down in XD, and you can't even visit it. And I was so upset. But there's also this magical feeling about, like, seeing how some places like changed over the years and seeing the
Mm-hmm.
effects of West over the environment, kind of like how in Tears of the Kingdom you get to see how things are doing after Breath of the Wild. Like in
Yeah.
in Pyrite Town, like it was like this grungy area with a lot of like Pokemon gang warfare and whatnot. But now, like, it's very peaceful. Like, peace has been restored. The Colosseum's still there, but it's a lot more regulated. And the old Cipher hideout has been converted into the news station. And it actually is pretty cool to kind of see, like, oh, hey, these guys from the last game, they're really doing well. They're doing well in life, and it's great. Until the news station gets attacked, and then you see all these bodies on the floor, and it's like, oh, right, I'm playing XD in Coliseum.
Yep. There's if you only are like able to choose between playing Colosseum or XD, there's kind of like pros and cons between both.
Yeah,
But I definitely agree that like this is one of those games where like the first game gives so much context to the sequel that like playing them both together makes it like the best experience.
yeah. And I actually do have a fun tidbit about, like, possible story that XD could have went in if you're interested in it.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, like, the game wasn't going to have a more lighthearted tone. Like,
Mm,
originally, the big plot twist would have been that Wes, the guy who left Team Snag'em to fix it, wouldn't have been such a nice guy, and that, his plan was to overtake Cypher, and that Michael was supposed to be the one to, the traditional protagonist to stop an evil Wes at the end of the game. But
oh,
then
yeah.
they decided, no, no, we can't do that because people who have played through Colosseum would feel cheated because they'd saved the day. So then instead, they decided to, make it more lighthearted just so that the impact of West wouldn't have been for naught. Which,
Oh,
well, the
okay, yeah.
idea of fighting against West and evil West sounds really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I can see why they decided to go against it. And, seeing a Ore in peace, it is really kind of like a nice feel good thing. So I can't say I'm too distraught over losing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm glad they didn't take that direction with the storyline. I do still wish they would have put like a battle against West somewhere in the game, kind of imitating that feel of like fighting Red in Gold and Silver.
Oh yeah, like they could have had him be like the final boss of the Ore Coliseum. Just have him bring like a random selection of like the shadow
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon you could have caught from Coliseum, including the legendary beasts.
Right.
Like that would have been cool, but
Or imagine if he was like at the top of like Mount Battle, the 100th opponent.
oh my gosh, that's such a missed opportunity.
That would have been
I'm
so
upset they didn't
cool.
do that now. I'm actually upset.
Yeah.
Or heck, if you don't want him to make him battle 100, make him battle 101.
Ooh. A lot of opportunities. Hey, hey, Pokemon Company, hit us up.
Hit us up. We'll make Pokemon Coliseum 3 and we'll make it a banger.
With all the expertise we have in game design.
Ah, yes, yes. I have like 50 pages of Pokemon Coliseum fanfic, which I'm pretty sure makes me qualified to write an actual installment in the series.
And I've fully developed one video game and made like 13 other prototypes of video games, so I'm qualified to do the programming.
We are perfect. Hire us now, Nintendo.
All right, let's get back on track though.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
At this point, do you want to get kind of more into like spoiler talk with like both of the games like finales?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. So, here's a timestamp somewhere. Um,
Yeah,
go to it if you don't want to spoilers for these old games.
I'll put a little like skip to this timestamp spoiler warning.
Skip here to avoid spoilers.
All right, you click
Um,
it. No, okay. Don't complain about us in the comments.
yeah.
So, isn't it crazy that Ronald McDonald showed up in the final level, like, and he was the big bad guy all along?
Yeah, and the fact that like it changed from an RPG to a bullet hell, that was crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was like Undertale before Undertale.
I know.
Okay, but yeah, for real though, so in X, Colosseum is very progressional plot line.
Hmm.
You go here, you know, after finding in the Colosseum and finding out that they're distributing these shadow Pokemon, they just kind of follow the rabbit trail down through the under into the lab, shut the lab down, but then find out that the rest of the shadow Pokemon are at this railgun Colosseum. You
Hmm.
face down Nazgul, and then the game ends. Right?
Well,
Right?
here's the thing. You said Ronald McDonald shows up. It's not him, but there is a clown that's behind the whole thing.
Yeah, remember that cute and cuddly mare that was mentioned like back in the beginning of this talk?
Yep, that very
Yeah,
unassuming, not suspicious mayor.
yeah, he's the main villain behind everything. And I love Colosseum's characters, like Ein, Venus, Dakium, Mirabee especially, all have such great personalities.
Hmm.
But this guy just felt it was like, like we don't get a motivation of why the mayor was evil. He just kind of poofs up, turns into Dr. Eggman and said, yeah, I'm curling my mustache, and now I shall crush you with this Tyranitar.
Yeah, it's as far as like the character goes, there's not much to him. I love his design though when he like goes fully Eggman.
Oh yeah, like the design's cool. It just felt like this came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and I don't understand why this happened.
Yeah, it's very much a plot twist just for its own sake.
Yeah, like the only hint you get is that at the beginning of the game you see Nazgul just kind of like walking out of the mayor's office and
Hmm.
just being like, "Okay, bye." And then they just never acknowledge it until the end of the game, and then it's like, oh,
It is kind of fun, like the setup of the red herring, like because you look at him and you're like, okay, this guy is evil. Like he might as well have "I am evil" tattooed to his forehead because like you just look at him and you're like, yeah, that's an evil dude.
yeah, that's the team leader right there, the team leader of Cypher.
Hmm. And so the fact that they do kind of sucker punch you with like, oh, the silly little mayor was actually the mastermind all along.
Yeah, I'd
Um,
I'd laugh more at the mayor if his boss fight wasn't such a pain in the ass.
that too.
Like when I said this game does a lot of strategy, this one is the most brutal. They have
Hmm.
the main bad guy, I forget his name, but the mayor, his main tactic is that he has this slacking, and slacking is usually a bad Pokemon because it has Truant. Like it has an extremely high attack stat, 160 base physical attack power, but Truant means he only attacks every other turn, which means if you use moves like Protect, you can easily exploit this weakness and take it down no problem. But he
Hmm.
also has a slow cane King with a move called Skill Swap, which swaps its ability with someone else. So if it manages to get the skill swap off on Slack King, you can just expect earthquakes to destroy your entire team.
That's right.
Not to mention this guy also has stuff like a Salamence, the aforementioned Tyranitar, and like I think a Machamp. It was either him and Nazgul who had like a strong Machamp.
Yeah, I can't remember which.
All I
Um,
know is that like it is a tough team, like a very well competitive team in its own right, and you had to beat it in order to beat the game.
yeah, that's true. I remember. I caught his Tyranitar, but didn't actually beat him. So I had to go back through the fight, and then at that point, he's got the replacement for Tyranitar is an Aggron, and so I'm like, okay, well now I gotta fight this on top of
great.
the
Now
rest of his team.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I want to mention quickly about XD gameplay-wise, is
Mhm.
that in Colosseum, there's only one Pokemon, Shadow Pokemon per trainer. In
Yes.
XD, Pokemon trainers can have up to 2 to 3 if you're a boss, and the final boss will have 6, but we'll talk more about that when we get there.
Right, right. And then I just love after fighting this silly little mayor for the fate of the world, he's like, I've got this getaway helicopter, and then for no good reason, Ho-Oh just shows up and nukes the helicopter.
Without any warning or foreshadowing, just a random Ho-Oh appears. It used Sacred Fire on the helicopter. It's super effective. Don't think about the implications that the pilot of that helicopter just died, because it's a happy ending now.
It's okay, he was a Cypher helicopter pilot.
Yeah, he was responsible for kicking Lillipups. Don't pity him. He's dead.
Yeah.
Flies off, never to be seen again, even in the sequel. Just flies off into the sunset. Happy ending.
Well, actually, there is the you can get Ho-Oh at the end of Colosseum.
Yeah, but that's more like a reward. Like, there's no
It
story
is, yeah.
acknowledgement that Oh is gone now.
Yeah, there's no story significance to it, but it's like, well, there's a little bonus for you.
And, despite having Kyogre and Groudon right there on the box cover, they do not make a physical appearance in either of the games.
Nope, that is like purely promotional.
Yeah, just kind of baiting you like, you want to see these in 3D? Nope. Gonna have to get the extension for the Game Boy link cable in order to fight with your Game Boy, which I also begged my parents for because, me and my brother wanted to fight in 3D. Which was honestly another cool feature of that game.
Yes, it was. I think the purpose of Groudon and Kyogre being all over the marketing was to be like, hey, you can connect your GBA games to this.
Oh, I understand. I'm still upset by it.
Right. Did you have the GBA link cable growing up?
Yes. Like, if I could annoy my dad into getting me an entire system to play this game, you bet I'm going to annoy him into getting, letting me connect the game to the Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And, me and my brother would spend a lot of time before Revolution just taking our teams, hooking them up to the console, and then battling with them.
Yes, same. I remember, like, the coolest thing, in my opinion, was the fact that they would let you do Mount Battle, but with a GBA team. So I could use my Leaf Green team.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool.
And then, like, whichever, like, game, like, whatever version of whatever game you're playing, they had, like, a full 3D model of that trainer that you were playing as instead of, like, Wes or Michael.
Or, there's also a feature where you can, if you have a team of 6 purified Pokemon, you can have your XD team battle someone else's GBA team.
Yes.
So it could be like Wes versus like a Trainer Leaf or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just super cool. Because, like, before we got our own game file, it's like, my brother played a lot more of Colosseum. I played a lot more of XD. So, we'd hook it up and I'd use my Leaf Green team to face him as Wes. And then, he'd take his Emerald team to face me as Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Which was just a lot of fun memories with that.
Yeah. I honestly feel like the only thing that might have been missing is that they should have done like a mini game corner like they did with the Stadium games.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if Colosseum and XD had like Pokemon Stadium mini games?
It would be so cool.
Honestly, like, even if Revolution had that game reception would have been a lot better. Like, we just need more party games in our Pokemon games.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Get on it, Nintendo. I'm telling you, if you let us run the third game in the Ori series, we will make it a hit. Think about it. Think about it hard.
We want directorial roles, but not the responsibility of having to do much of the heavy lifting of the work.
Yeah, if it bombs, we'll just blame Game Freak for being bad at game design. Like we do for every time Game Freak trips and falls.
I mean, would you want Game Freak to make another game, or would you want them, like they did with the Ori games, to like contract another team?
If they could contract the same team, that would be the best case scenario.
That would be the best case scenario. If not them, then like Namco Bandai or something.
Oh my gosh, Namco Bandai on a Pokemon game just sounds awesome.
It does. It really does. I mean, they already did like Pokken, so
I will settle for a re-release on the Switch.
yeah.
Please. Think of the children. I'm the children. Think of me.
We're the children.
We are the children. Think of us.
All right. Let's get talking about kind of the crazier spoiler talk of XD, because this is one of the things that I've been really excited to talk about.
Oh yeah. Although this plot twist is a lot more seeable coming if you've played the first game.
Yeah, it's a bit more properly built up, and especially the fact that like there's some shady dudes that are trying to be like, no, look at us, we're helping you.
Yeah. At the beginning of the game, you run into this guy named Zook, and he has a Shadow Zangoose.
Mm-hmm.
And you get rescued early on by these inconspicuous short old man and his two sci-fi looking bodyguards. Eos and like Eos or something, like I don't know, like it's an E name and an A name, but this old man, his name is Greevil.
That sounds like evil.
Greed and evil. Don't think too much about it. He ends up being the equivalent of the mayor because he ends up being, surprise, the leader of the reformed Cypher. A plot twist that is you could see coming if you played the first game or if you have any kind of plot awareness.
It's a bit more like it's still played like a mystery with like a surprise reveal, but it's like very on the nose about it the whole time.
Yeah, like it's not easy to see, it's not easy to kind of like gloss over. And the game kind of plays out the same, like you go down to track them, you find their new Shadow Pokemon factory, shut it down, have some run-ins with like Team Snag'em and Mirror B along the way, but in the end, you just kind of track them down, and the finale of this game is actually insane.
Yes.
The big plot twist, forgot to mention this during the initial story thing, is that the big plot twist is that they have, despite it being the more lighthearted one, they have the edgiest Pokemon design ever created, with Shadow Lugia being like this recolored Lugia that is purple and silver, and it is an unpurifiable Shadow Pokemon. None of your normal methods can purify it, and this guy has basically a super nuke steroid Lugia, and he's about to unleash it on the world if you don't whim out to a active volcano to stop him. This game is insane.
It's completely bonkers, the climax of this game.
So yeah, the one thing about this whole game that makes me question everything is that near the end, it's implied that there's that they there's like this sub arc where like one of the brothers, the red-haired one, is kind of like this reluctant figure, like, oh, I don't want to be evil, but like my family is evil, so I am destined to fight you. And then you fight Greevil, and at first he just sicks his Shadow Lugia on you, and it would be an epic battle if you couldn't just Master Ball it.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is like a lot of like something they wouldn't attempt for years later, and I'm not gonna expect them to do that, especially on the limitations of the GameCube. But Could you imagine if like the Shadow Lugia fight was like one of those things where you couldn't throw a Pokeball until the end, like make it like a Gigantamax or Terra Raid?
Yeah.
Like at least make me beat the crap out of it before you let me battle it. Like this
Mm-hmm.
just feels anticlimactic.
Yeah, that was, to its credit, Sword and Shield with its big battle with Eternatus and all that. I really like how they did that moment.
Oh yeah,
Um,
like the as much things I have against that game, the Eternatus fight was amazing and one of the coolest moments in Pokemon. Period.
it
Although
felt like a proper boss fight. Like in so many of these past games, they tried to like make this sort of moment a thing, but it was always so anticlimactic because you could just throw a Master Ball.
they do something similar in the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for their final boss.
I have not yet finished Scarlet and Violet, so
I am aware of that, so I'm not going more into detail, but they have another good moment. Like,
okay.
I like the new Pokemon games. They have a lot of flaws, but they nail their more cinematic moments. But
And
yeah, getting
what's the one? Like I haven't played it, but I have seen like the final battle to Legends Arceus as well.
oh my gosh, that is the best final battle in the entire series.
That one is also pretty good. I'm still inclined to say that XD's is a bit crazier because of what they make you do after fighting Shadow
Oh yeah.
Lugia is 6 Shadow Pokemon.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like if you were disappointed by Lugia, don't worry because all the difficulty and stuff that you missed from Colosseum comes back for the Greevil fight in one big battle. 6 Shadow Pokemon. If you knock them out, you have to restart the battle in order to catch them. And not only that, these are powerful Pokemon: a Shadow Tauros, a Shadow Executor, a Shadow Rhydon, and like I said before, all 3 of the legendary birds, who are, by the way, also Shadow Pokemon. So you have to not only withstand their powerful Shadow attacks, which are all super effective against your Pokemon, but you have to catch 3 legendaries and 3 difficult to catch Pokemon. It is near impossible to do a perfect run of this fight where you catch all 6. What most people do is that they try their best, and then for like the 1 or 2 that they couldn't catch on the first go, they have to rematch him and then catch whatever ones they couldn't catch before. I am one of the few crazy people who have attempted a perfect run, and it was very satisfying when I did it, but good heavens, don't do that to yourselves.
Yeah.
Just fight them more than once. It's fine.
I
You
th-
don't have to hurt yourself like me.
I seem to recall my younger brother as well trying to do the same thing of like trying to catch them all in one go and just like remembering how much of a nightmare that was.
Yeah, because like, here's the thing. Even if you like in Pokemon Colosseum, if you catch a Shadow Pokemon and then lose the fight, they won't have it for the rematch. But if you lose a fight in XD, they get their Shadow Pokemon back.
Yeah.
So if you fail so it's not really like I'll if I catch 3 and then wipe out, I'll only have to worry about 3 for the rematch. No, it's either you defeat him and then go back for the rematch in the post game, or you just start all over again.
It's crazy.
And then at the end, after you catch or defeat the Pokemon, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna blow the island up." But then the sun comes back and he's like, "But let's not." And then there's like this supposed sweet moment where it's like, "Oh, he was just misunderstood," and it's like, "No, he ain't."
Yeah.
And they just kind of get away with not going to jail because they leave because family. By the way, the Greevil was the father of the blue-haired and red-haired guys. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea of like a villain that redeems themselves because it's very thematic because the whole games are about purifying shadow Pokemon. So purifying the villain in one final act sounds like a great concept to end the series on. I just wish they would have built it up more and give him more of a reason to do it rather than, oh, I am evil. Like maybe for some reason Shadow Lugia could cure an illness or something, or just give it something
Yeah.
so that the heel face turn is a bit more believable and I'm not just letting a terrorist go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I feel like I've been hogging a lot of this.
No, it's good. Like I said, I still don't like completely remember all the details of XD, so you've been like reminding me as you've been recapping the story like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what happens." Um
Yeah, it is one of my favorite games of all time, so it holds a special place in my heart.
and I specifically brought you on the show for this purpose. So I wanted to gush and I wanted to hear you gush. So
Then you shall take my gush.
then gush we shall, because we're about to get to the gushiest part of the show, which is the favorites.
Oh boy, the
Are
favorites.
you ready to trade some faves?
Sure, but I'm gonna let you take the lead on this one since I just got done talking a whole bunch.
Yeah. I mean, I do have some questions for you about favorites.
Oh, all
We
right.
can
In
kind
that
of make
case,
some back and forth here, but the first thing that I want to know is from either of the two games, who is your favorite Pokemon that is featured in these games? So basically, like out of all the Pokemon up to Gen 3, what's your favorite?
okay. So it okay. So if you ask in Gen 3 in general, my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon would be like Kabutops and Aerodactyl, but they're not in this game.
Right.
So if you're asking me like my favorite playable Pokemon, catchable Pokemon in these two games,
Yeah.
it's gonna be an odd one. But in XD, Zubat.
Zubat?
Crobat is a very underrated Pokemon, and so is the entire Zubat line. Like a lot of people hate it, but like it poison and flying is a good type combination, and it's
hmm
just so useful in battle. Like you
No,
have
I'll
moves.
I'll totally give you that because yeah, Crobat is awesome.
Yeah, like I used a Crobat in XD, and it served phenomenally.
hmm
If we're talking just Colosseum exclusively, since you can't blah 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 blah, you can't catch a Zubat in that game, then I'd have to say my favorite would have to be the Hitmontop that you get from the aforementioned guy who beats up Egan and his Pikachu.
Yeah.
Just because I've always liked Hitmontop's aesthetic of him just spinning around on his top.
hmm
But I also love the fact that you start off with Umbreon, Espeon, and Eevee, and in Eevee's case in XD, you can evolve him into any of the evolutions: Umbreon, Espeon, Vaporeon, Jolteon, or Flareon,
Yeah, it's super cool.
which, just offers a lot more creativity. Like, I've used a Jolteon, I've used all five in separate playthroughs for XD, so it's
hmm
just, it's impressive how many different type combinations you can make in XD compared to Colosseum.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how about you? What's your favorite?
Yeah. So if we're talking favorite Pokemon of all time for me, it is both Raichu and Venusaur, but neither of those are featured, so kind of same boat.
Sad.
But then right beneath them, the next one that I really like is Umbreon, which Colosseum lets me have as a starter Pokemon, which is. Honestly, I think Colosseum is probably even the reason that Umbreon is one of like my all-time favorites. But I just
That is very fair.
I love its design. I love that it's, you get the two starters because I love also that you get Espeon with it. But specifically like Umbreon always appealed to me. Especially just it's so tanky and you can learn so many like ridiculous moves with Umbreon that like I know for most people, they enjoy just like fast, hard hitting Pokemon, but I love that Umbreon can do like the toxic stalls and like can like mess with opponents with like lots of traps, or you can do like more of an offensive build and it'll just like soak up hits without even caring. Um, Umbreon has always been like one of my go-to like tanky Pokemon.
Yeah, and Colosseum and XD are really games that really let Umbreon shine because in the single
hmm
player games where it's more single battle focus, not every situation will call for a tank. Like,
Yeah,
if you can't deal a lot of damage, it could be put in situations where it doesn't really do much. But in double battles, it can take hits for your teammate. like you said, it can use toxic strategies to kind of like help set up and whittle people down, and even
Mm-hmm.
other moves like Helping Hand. Like these are really the type of games where a Pokemon like Umbreon really shines. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
cool that you start out with one of them.
Right. And especially the fact that Umbreon and Espeon are like complements to each other, because Espeon is the fast, hard-hitting Pokemon. So you get that balance by having those two as your starters.
Yeah, and it's a shame that a lot of people who play these games usually drop Umbreon
Yeah.
early on, and it's like you guys are resting on a very useful teammate right there.
Mm-hmm. And to be fair, because it is more of like a bulky Pokemon with like slower strategies, obviously for things like speedrunning, it's like no, don't use Umbreon. Like
Well, yeah,
your
but I
battles
play
will
games to
last
have fun.
longer this way.
Yeah, but I play games to have fun, not to speed run and skip all the best stuff.
There you go. All right, I got another favorites question for you. What is either your favorite town or just like location from the games?
All right, my all-time favorite location is the Under.
The Under.
Like that Pokemon Black Market area, the Gritty Bar, the Underground Society, the Club, which is like, these super spy kids that are just trying to take down Cypher from the inside out. Like the aesthetic is the reason why I love kind of like the neon light, grungy aesthetic in a lot of things I do now.
Yeah, yeah.
And it kills me that they got rid of it in XD. I will never forgive
Right.
them for that. Although, if talking XD, I'm gonna have to go with just a tie between Pyrite Town and Fennec City. Like
Yeah.
very basic choices, but like I like the cool atmosphere of like Fennec City being like this oasis
Mm-hmm.
and just very calm respite for the player, and then Pyrite Town just being like this grungy city with smooth jazz. Like you can just feel like you go in there and you know exactly what, like, this is the kind of town where the Western cowboy comes in and there's obviously something rotten, but you just have to go in there and find it. Like really
Mm-hmm.
great atmosphere.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with you there on both of those towns. Those ones are great too. I think for me, the one area, and it's in both of the games, like there's a lot of really cool areas in the games, but for me, like in terms of just like theming, even like the music that plays in the area and just like what you do there, I really like Mount Battle.
I'm surprised to hear you say that.
It is, and I mean, like what you do there, it's just battle after battle. There's
Yeah.
not like a ton of variety in what you do there, but I just love the look of it. You're just like climbing like up and up this mountain. There's like the numbers on the floor that are marking your progression, and you want to get to the ultimate goal of, you know, beating 100 opponents.
Yeah, in a row.
And I think probably why I remember this area so fondly is because of the experience of my Leaf Green team, which my cartridge for Leaf Green ended up getting damaged and it deleted my save.
Oh.
But I had my Leaf Green team still imported to like the save file on Mount Battle on Colosseum. So I was able to like relive the glory days with my old team by like doing the Mount Battle challenge and getting to see them all again.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good story.
Right? And it's so like cuz I had like event Pokemon
That
too.
sounds
Like I had my Mewtwo from Leaf Green. I had like like a 10th anniversary Pikachu and like just a bunch of other stuff like my Venusaur. There's just so many like good memories. I even had like a friend transferred his Groudon to my save file and all that too. Like, I was decked out with this super crazy team, and so just getting to go through Mount Battle, and kind of like relive those childhood memories was something that was super cool.
Sorry, my cats decided to have a mountain battle in my room.
Very nice. Hey, we accept cats here on the show. There's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
quite
but
a few cat moments.
they're just kind of running around. I was like, gosh darn it, guys. All right, but yeah.
I'm trying to
Uh,
record here.
the last thing I heard was like you had your leaf green Mewtwo and all that. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. It was mostly like I had like from a Pokemon event, like the 10th anniversary event, there was like a special Pikachu that I had.
Oh, was that one of the surfing Pikachu ones?
Um I don't think that one knew Surf,
Ah.
which is unfortunate. It didn't have any like cool extra moves, but the original trainer, I remember it just said like 10th anniversary. I think it came with some kind of like a held item, but there's an event that would let you choose from like a list of six different Pokemon. You could have downloads for all of them. And I remember like I didn't have my own Game Boy Advance like Pokemon game at the time. But a friend was like, "Okay, we'll just like split the six evenly. So like I'll give you some, and then like my older brother, like he gave him, like we each got two, was what it was. But
Oh.
we just kind of divvied them all up because we only had the single game card. But man, that's some good memories right there.
Ah, man, that sounds amazing.
Let's see though. Another question I wanted to ask, since we were talking about the music earlier. I want to know, what are your favorites? If you can pick just one, that's cool. But if not, what are your favorite tracks from the game soundtrack?
All right, if you will indulge me,
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a rant in mind for
Yeah.
one particular song, and that
Okay.
is the admin theme in Pokemon Colosseum.
Okay. Yes.
And this is a rant I like to call why 6-year-old Zorro was traumatized when he listened to this song the first time.
Oh boy.
All right, so keep in mind that this song, despite it being the admin theme, Mirror B doesn't use this song. He had his custom, like Mirror B, like da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, it's dark and intimidating. It has like those violins, and it just seems grand. It makes you know that the battle you're about to go is the real deal. And
Yes.
the first time it plays is against Dakim.
Mm-hmm.
And as previously mentioned, this is a 10-foot giant with spiky red hair that had just punched a guy in front of you and then used an earthquake protect strategy to wipe you out multiple times. And even if you get through his Pokemon, you then find out that his shadow Pokemon is a mother
I am Entei.
Entei. And then you realize that the music is just making this even more scary and foreboding. So, yeah, that song has stuck with me the longest just because every time I heard it for like a bunch of times, even after getting past Dakim, I would like my heart still beats when I listen to it just because I remember the absolute fear that Dakim put into me when I was young. And my brother even wasn't that affected by it. He's just like, it's just a game. And I'm just like, it's a monster! So yeah, that song has stuck with me, for better or worse.
No, I'm there with you on that one. There's some of that we can trauma bond over that, like getting our butts handed to us by Dakim.
Yeah, Dakim just comes up and we just like huddle in the corner like, ah, don't step on me! With those giant ore feet!
That is what I most associate that song with, is Dakim. Because that fight is ridiculous.
Yeah, like, you hear Ein and Venus do it, and, they're not easy, but they're difficult, but Dakim is just on a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I say it out loud, I'm starting to understand why they kind of pushed the strategy back so far in the game, because, like, I think they kind of realized, oh, wait, we just kind of put one of the strongest strategies in the game as our second major boss. Oops.
Mm-hmm. The jump in difficulty is
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you could argue that it's a bad difficulty curve, but I like that the game doesn't pull any punches, so
Yeah, like, Colosseum is a difficult game, but not an unfair one.
Yeah.
Like, the only real difficulty curve that I really don't like is, like, the one where it's, like, when you get to the final Colosseum, the final boss will have, like, Pokemon in the 60s, but at the beginning of the Colosseum and the enemies before were all in, like, high 40s.
Yeah.
So unless you know to grind at my battle beforehand, you just kind of are completely unprepared for this powerful Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, XD kind of has a bit more of a smooth difficulty scale,
Mm-hmm.
where the difficult battles are, things that are extra that you don't really have to do in order to enjoy the majority of the game.
It's true, yeah. Well, let me see then. Since the music track you mentioned is a Colosseum one, do you have a favorite music track from XD's soundtrack?
Oh, I'm gonna have to say this is a bit of an odd one, but just a unique song for XD that wasn't in Colosseum was the SS Libra theme.
Oh yeah.
It's like, all right, so just for context, uh, in the beginning of XD, you know that super powerful nuke Lugia? Well, you get to see its power firsthand because it just picks up a giant Titanic like boat and then drops it in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point in the game, you have to go to this boat, and it's completely abandoned. All the Pokemon were, stolen from it. Any people who are left on the boat are completely gone. You never get an explanation for where they are. The only guy there is like one of the old workers who just lives there, like a hobo. But like when you're exploring that abandoned thing, like it has like this very ominous theme to it. Like it's hollow and empty, and it just kind of hits home like, wow, this is the power of Shadow Lugia. If I don't succeed, what more damage can it do? And it's like, and it's a bright adventure overall. And it's weird to keep saying that after all these dark moments. I keep talking about XD,
Right.
but like, that's one of those moments that just kind of hits you like, oh, hey, I'm still playing a Colosseum game.
Yeah. A couple of like honorable mentions to the soundtrack that are like not quite like my top favorites. I love the Fennec City theme. Just because it's super pleasant and there's like the harmonica just going off.
Oh, yeah. Also, special mention out to my boy Outskirt Stand.
Yeah.
That old Western harmonica. You just roll in the bar, like the sounds of like the pipes going in that old train, like
Mm-hmm.
oh man, like sets this tone perfectly, especially for Colosseum, as it kind of sets you up as this lone ranger, and it's just like an outskirt stand. It's like a random bar that you buy Pokeballs from. Just makes you feel like you're a wanderer with only one goal in mind, and that is to root out the evils of the world.
Yeah, that one's good too. We already talked about it a bunch, but Pyrite Town,
Oh yeah, smooth
the
jazz.
acoustic bass and the snapping, and
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Dun, dun, dun,
I
dun.
already talked about Mount Battle enough, but yeah, Mount Battle is also a good one. But if I had to like really just like rein it in and be like, these are my favorites, from Colosseum, it's definitely got to be the final battle. I adore how like triumphant that one is, especially because like you mentioned with like the admin battle music and stuff, a lot of the other fight music in the game is very imposing and very intense.
Yeah. For
Um
Nastor himself, he doesn't even have any music. Like it's just the audience, which just makes it feel like eerie, like something's
mhm,
not right. Why is there no music? And then you realize because he's not the final boss. But when you do
right.
find him, okay, I'll let you talk. I keep interrupting you.
No, it's good because that's a good point too because you get that whole thing with like the fight with no music. And it just leaves you wondering like what's gonna happen next. Then they won't just end it on a fight with no music, right? And then we get our silly little twist with the mayor and all that, and it's like it's pretty standard fare for like a setup for like a final battle. But I just love the music, how like exhilarating it is, and the fact that you get like the crowd cheering in the background too, because it takes place in a big Colosseum and everything.
Oh yeah, like one of the best finales in any Pokemon game.
And
Like
quite similarly, like what the music does with the final boss in XD is also very cool. But if I had to pick a favorite track from XD, it is hands down the Mirror B theme, because that is so groovy.
oh yeah, let the music roll, man. Ba-da-dun, dun, 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 da-da-dun, dun, 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 dun. Like, can we just agree that both Mirror B soundtracks are really great?
Absolutely, because that was the thing. Like I remember I got such a kick out of the fact that in Colosseum, like the Ludicolo would like dance to the music. Um, and then we found Mirror B again. It's like, oh, he's got like a new like kind of like Michael Jackson motif going for him, and like
Oh yeah,
the theme's like really chill and groovy. But it's the fact that the Lombre still like dance to the music.
oh yeah. Like both ones are kind of like based off of Michael Jackson. Like it's like the early ones. Like just replace Mirror B's yellow jumpsuit with an orange one, and it's like Michael Jackson's old outfit before he kind of rebranded and went through the skin color change
Right.
surgery. And then his second one was a more modern Michael Jackson inspiration.
All
Inspiration.
the pop.
Inspiration. Yeah, more King of Pop rather than the Jackson 5. And while we're on the topic, another shout out to a very bizarre track and moment, Miracle
Yes.
theme.
Yes, Miracle B.
And oh my, if you guys have not heard this, like if you they basically just like took Mirror B's original theme in Colosseum, because like in Colosseum, if you like go back to where you fought Mirror B in like this very specific frame of time, like before you defeat like Venus and Ein, you can find this Mirror B impersonator called Miracle B, and his battle theme is just the Mirror B theme, but like put on times 10 speed.
And it's like
And
the notes are off key and like played
yeah,
on
yeah,
like weird instruments.
like it's like they like wanted to make a Nightcore version, but they just pitched it up, played the piano incorrectly, and just put it on times 10 speed. Because like, it's like my brother and I accidentally stumbled into that, and when the battle theme became started, it's like, did our game get hacked? Like, did someone use an action replay on this? Like, what the heck is going on? Who is this guy? And oh my gosh, why is he kicking our butts?
Right, and the funny thing about it is you can encounter him like anytime after you beat Mirror B.
So yeah, if you go
But
there, like after Mirror B, your Pokemon are in like the 30s, early 30s. This
yeah,
guy has Team in 40, so if you go back right after you beat Mirror B because you wanted to grab something or missed a collectible, like me and my brother did, and then he fights with level 40 Pokemon, you're gonna have a bad time.
exactly. But then like even stranger is like after you beat the game, he disappears.
Yeah, you can't fight him. Like it's a very easy to miss secret boss. And they never acknowledge it. He never shows up in XD. Like it's just one of I really love like little things like that rewards curious players from going back.
Definitely.
Although it would have been cool if like they hadn't sealed off Mirror B's tunnels in like XD, that if you went back there, you could find Miracle B again and battle him.
He has the new battle theme, but messed up.
No. He uses the original
The
Mirror
original.
B theme,
Yeah.
unedited, because it's not being trademarked anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're not
There
going to
you
use
go.
this name, I will.
That's a good idea. All right,
Again, Nintendo, hire us.
we're on the ball. We got the
We
best
have
ideas.
ideas. Make them happen. Throw money at us, and we will hopefully turn out a good product.
Okay, I have one more like favorites question for you before we wrap up here.
All right.
I want to know who is your favorite character or characters?
Okay, so I'm not gonna say Mirror B because we've already gushed about him, and even though he's my favorite, we need to give
But you
love to
could.
other characters. And I'm gonna do it with my favorite group of numbskulls from Pokemon XD, the legendary Hexagon Brothers.
Yes, they were so funny.
For those who haven't played it, their basic gag is that they're like Power Ranger knockoffs. They're like in the Cypher armor, but they're all in colorful uniforms. But they're really bad at taking roll call. Like they'll stand in a straight line and they're really like, roll call! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the one who calls for roll call won't say their number. Then they're like, wait, we're missing someone. Try again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, we're still missing someone. And they just come up with more extreme ways to make the gag work. Like, you exit, like, the main lab, and you'll see them huddle up in a circle, like, alright, let's try it now. And they keep going in the circle, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait a minute! Now there's too many of us! Be wary, brothers. There's a spy among us. And it's like, who hired these numbskulls?
Oh man, I'd forgotten about them while we were talking about this, but like yes, they're like one of the funniest groups.
Oh yeah, like every time you see them, it is such a joy to see.
Mm-hmm. And I love that they have the little like Power Rangers like color coded. Each one of them has like a shadow Pokemon of like a type that matches their color.
Oh yeah, and because there's 6 of them and each one have it, it's like a great way. Like it's early on in the game you encounter them, so you can like catch like any one of those Pokemon could be good individual members for a team. Like one of the ones a popular one that people go for is catching the Shadow Spheal from like the blue one.
Yeah.
But my go-to was always either getting the Seedot to get a Shift Tree, or the one I use a lot, the Houndour and Houndoom from the red one. Like,
Oh yeah.
I've used Houndoom so many playthroughs, because like it's a strong Pokemon because of the way special attacks are done. Both Dark and Fire are special attacks, so it is just a great special attacker in these games, and it's great. Like in Colosseum, you catch a Shadow Houndoom, but it's at the end of the game. You can't really use it realistically, even for like a final boss.
Yeah,
In
definitely.
XD, you're able to use Houndour in all of its edgy Hellhound glory. Wait, am I gonna get censored for that one?
Nah, Hellhound is a thing.
Okay,
A
good.
Heckhound.
A Black Hound. Devil Dog.
Blackhound could get us in trouble for different reasons. Anyway.
Ah!
Ente.
I didn't mean to, like, why'd you have to bring race into this, cheese?
Because I'm problematic.
Yeah.
Let's get back to talking about characters.
Yeah. Let's move on before we get canceled. Anyway, your favorite character group that's not Mirror B, because we keep gushing on them.
I did list Mirror B as one of my favorites, but yeah. I will say I probably just on design alone, I really do like Wes.
Yes.
Wes is probably like my favorite character design to come out of those. To talk about characters that have a bit more like personality to them and like arcs and stuff. Like as far as bad guys go, I really like Gonzap, who's the head of Team Snag'em.
Oh my gosh, I love Team Snag'em. Like in his right hand man walk in, the guy with the gloom I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like I think one of the funniest plot twists in all of XD is that they steal Michael's snag machine, but then Gonzap is chewing walking out because it's like, what the, this, like, he's a big hulking man with biceps, and this is a little kid, and the snag machine's sized for a kid. So he's literally too buff to use it, and he's like, what am I supposed to do with this walk-in? I can't even put this thing on.
It's such a good gag.
Yeah, like, it's so weird to have them acknowledge it, and then, after you kind of come in and grab it, it's like, oh, you're going down to Cypher too? We're bros now! And then they help you break in by sleep powdering the guards like they did you, and it's like that one scene from Full Metal Alchemist where it's like, the butcher, I forget his name, and Armstrong just kind of bond over muscles.
Yes.
Like, I know Michael doesn't have muscles, but it's that same kind of like, we have earned each other's respect. We are brothers.
Yes.
We're brothers.
Oh man.
Sorry, I just that was your villain, and then I kind of hijacked it.
No, you said everything there was to say. That was perfect. But yeah, Gonzap has like a good mix of like a very intimidating character design, but then also like being played for comedy in the right ways too, because he's not like the main villain.
Yeah, and to be fair, in Colosseum, he was kind of like played a lot more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, you go to fight the final battle, and then he, like, comes down the elevator like a surprise, I'm still here. Remember when you blew up my home?
Your old boss.
Yeah, and then it's like, man, like, awkward moment. And, you beat him, so when he comes back in the sequel, like, they kind of play up the fact that Team Snag'em has kind of been, like, ran through the dirt since Cypher took over, and that they're down on their luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it makes it a lot more believable that they'll help you, because it's like, what are we doing? This crime thing isn't working. Can we at least take down Cypher? Let's help this twerp take down Team Cypher.
Yeah. It's these games are so good.
Yeah. Please, Switch re-releases. That's all I ask for. Think of the children.
Well, then I guess to wrap everything up, just what are like your final thoughts on the games?
It is honestly amazing that these games were even created. With like the Pokemon mentality of like, having Pokemon be friends, like going into like a what if scenario of like what if they were abused to the point of being turned to weapons against for war, and just kind of like this dark gritty atmosphere is honestly like, it doesn't sound like it would work on paper, but it really does. And it's not something you'd see in the mainline games, but like, I'm just glad that we were able to have this adventure to begin with, and I wish they would do more with this concept. But it is, they have said that they do not have much plans to do more visits to Ore, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, these were one of the first Pokemon games I have ever gotten. Back when I just watched the anime and was just a fan, and they helped cement my love for like this amazing franchise. Like, even as an adult, no matter how many Pokemon games or, what qualities diminish or what controversies come from Game Freak and whatnot, like, these games will always have a special place in my heart, and I just will always appreciate and play through them whenever I get the chance.
Well said. To add on to that with my own final thoughts, the biggest thing to me that matters and why I am so crazy about these two games and why I think they stand out amongst the other Pokemon games, they have so much personality to them. The highs are all so high with this game. They are so actiony and edgy compared to other Pokemon games. The comedy is super good. There's a lot of very silly characters that are fun to laugh at. The more emotional aspects of the story are something that really resonate with me. And even like you said, some of it is not like story that is told through characters, but story that is experienced through gameplay. These are not just Pokemon that you found in the wild and took with you and decided, like, okay, this is going to be my team. These are Pokemon that you rescued and that you help recover from, like, a painful past. So, And because you can't catch wild Pokemon in this game, it really feels like a smaller, more tightly knit group of Pokemon that you really learn to care for. And I think just in terms of like the structure of like doing the double battles, like we said, all of like the opponents with like better strategies, things like that. It just really shakes up the Pokemon formula in a way that is so cool, in my opinion. And I think there are so many things that modern Pokemon gets right that I don't want to knock them for, that I'm like, this is a super good idea, like, run with this, please. But there's also a lot of stuff that, like, they really could look back to these older games and kind of see, like, oh, yeah, this is what our newer games are missing in terms of, like, heart and, like, ideas for, like, opponents and everything. There's a lot here that I wish they would come back to.
Yeah, like, not even Ore specifically, but, like, the ideas of, like, using these Pokemon and their actual moves and abilities to help set up things, like, with the sleep powder, and using that kind of stuff. Like, they don't really explore those things. Like, these are type of games that could only be made by someone not previously familiar with it. Because, like, because Pokemon, of it being, like, a kid brand, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they would never dare try anything like this. It really did take, like, something out there, and it has created, like, this very unique piece of Pokemon history that has yet to be replicated or done again. Like, no other games really force you into double battles only, have really tackled themes this dark. Like, the only other game that really goes this dark could be, like, some of the Mystery Dungeon games, and even then, it's, like, not as... I think these games are a bit darker, just the darkest thing that's come out of Pokemon if you ignore the manga.
Right.
Or Arbok.
I'm over here still kind of advocating for, like, Sun and Moon. Base Sun and Moon, because Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon kind of changed the plot and made it stupider. But
oh, right, like, okay, yeah, Lusamine, okay, maybe that's why I like Sun and Moon so much, is because that was one game that tried to go, like, very dark with its tone.
Right. It's not, like, the majority of the game. It's kind of like that one point when the story arc kind of, like, builds up to it. It gets pretty dark.
Well, even then, like, Lusamine as a whole, like, slight spoilers for Sun and Moon, but, like, abuses her child, trying to dress them up just to look like a Pokemon that she's just trying to get, forces one of them to join, like, this gang of, like, rebels and outcasts. And, yeah, she also abuses Pokemon, whether it be the one centered around the game that I shall not spoil, or whether actually just encapsulating Pokemon in ice to preserve their beauty, which is...
disturbing.
I'll be honest, that in itself is a contender for most disturbing thing in a Pokemon game. And this is after we talked about the game where they actually abuse Pokemon to be to the point of super weapons.
Yeah.
So, take that as you will.
Yep.
I guess the takeaway here is, if you like the GameCube games, give Sun and Moon a try. If you can get past the awful tutorial that holds your hand, you're in for a treat.
There you go. There's still little pockets of sunshine that always come through in the Pokemon franchise. I think, I don't know, maybe we're going on too long with this, but this is one last tangent I wanted to bring up. Like, when people talk about, like, I hear a lot of times people are like, oh, I wish Pokemon was, like, darker, like they made Pokemon for adults, and it was like, they usually have, like, bad ideas about it, like they kind of go the wrong way. They're like, oh, I wish Pokemon was, like, really violent, and, like, the Pokemon were really scary or whatever. The Ore games kind of propose, like, a counter solution to that. Like, they don't do anything that's, like, too out of line. Like, they're able to keep their E rating and stuff. but it's more like the theming and the world and the stories that are told through the characters and stuff. Those aspects of it are more mature in a way that's not just like, violence for its own sake or,
Yeah, like
whatever other nonsense they can do to like get an M rating. It's just like a mature storyline. And I think
yeah,
that's what makes it super cool.
yeah, because like despite tackling so many dark themes and concepts, like people like Mirror B, the Hexagon Brothers, like they're
Hmm.
still fun. They're still goofy. At its core, it still feels like Pokemon. It's still fun. You know, collecting monsters, beating bad guys. The stakes are just higher, and that's really the magic of these games. The fact that despite all the changes they do to the typical Pokemon formula, at the end of the day, it's still Pokemon, and it's still fantastic.
Hmm. That was beautiful. I think that's a good place to end it.
Okay, good. Stop me before I decide to make another jab at Gen 8.
Oh man, I don't think I could. But anyway, thanks everyone so much for listening. This is a fun little retrospective on games that I'm very passionate about, but there are also games that David and I have both played, so there wasn't really a place to talk about it in a normal setting. So thanks for joining me, Zorro. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, I'm glad to be on here today. Like I said, both of these games were kind of like my introduction to like actually playing Pokemon games, so being able to just share my love with them and just kind of remember why this franchise hooked me in, great opportunity too. And I whenever you do the Sun and Moon retrospective, call me back on because we're going to be asking for it now.
Right on. All right, to all the listeners at home, I'm glad you stuck around for this little extra episode we did. It was pretty much like the full length of a normal episode of the podcast.
When you go for a mini episode and it just turns into an episode.
So this is just a little chance to like throw a bone in the midst of this real drought of content, because I haven't been able to get to making videos as much recently, but I promise the Danganronpa episode is on the way. I hope this will be enough to tide you all over.
Yeah, like anyone who's played Danganronpa, you kind of need to take breaks between it because it will mess you up.
Yes.
Like I played only the first chapter and it emotionally broke me, and yet I keep going back for more. It's like an abusive relationship.
Is this how you turn into a Shadow Zorro?
Wait a minute. We've been talking about shadow Pokemon and their purple auras. You're a PurpleCheeseMan. You're the Shadow Cheese.
What are you saying about purple Pokemon?
Oh, would you look at the time? I think the video's about to end. The little cheese is watching.
The little cheeselings.
Yeah.
All right, I am recording now, I suppose.
All right. So, is this usually the part where you do a intro?
Yeah, I do some kind of a stupid intro, and then we get started.
Well, I'm waiting for the stupid intro.
Also, you're muted, so we'll just kind of wait this out a second. Oh, what's the mirror? Yeah, I'll just cut it right there. That'd be a good spot to... Yeah, we're done now.
That was fun.
That was a good time. Thanks for doing this, man.
Yeah. Sorry, I felt like I kept like stealing your microphone every time you started a rant, and I'm like, oh, blah 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 blah.
It's all good, man. Because I was like, I wasn't sure if I had like enough to say, to like get a lot of content out of it, and then you would just like take what I said and like run with it and bring up a lot of good points. So I'd say it turned out awesomely.
Sweet.
I do not mind for a second that I don't mind for a second that you talked a lot.
All right, cool. Yeah, and sorry for the censors you're gonna have to put in there.
No, it's good. It was really minimal. There's only a few moments that are gonna require it. So I stopped recording. I'm hitting recording again. We're gonna awkwardly sandwich this somewhere in the middle of the episode, or we're not. I guess that depends on you. Do you have anything you're working on that you want to plug?
No. Like, I'm writing a book, but it's nowhere near done, so...
Alright, if you want more exciting Zorro-related content, go watch the Among Us video that I uploaded.
Yep. I am not allowed to plug things, because the last time I did, he cut me off and cut out an entire rant.
You're allowed to plug your own stuff. You're a guest on my show.
Well, I don't have stuff to plug.
Yeah, that's fair.
You think I have a life?
Alright, never mind. This is going in the bloopers then instead of...
Okay, I believe you.
Wait, this is going in it. Crap! I swore! You're gonna have to censor that. I'm sorry, future Cheese. Cheese, why do you... Look what you made me do! Cheese, think! If you tell me it's not going in the video, then why would you rant at me for not swearing? I don't know where I'm going with this, because it's a blooper reel, and I don't know how much of this you're gonna keep in, but I'm just gonna yell, because it means that I'm not admitting defeat!
Oopsie.
How dare you?